but we've got such a packed agenda that if I kick it off, is that okay? And then Julian can pick up when he joins us. So hello, my name's Jenny Lewis, Director of HR and MD. I love these Friday lunchtimes. And we've got an amazing run of report outs today. I'm on painkillers and I can't get my words out, so can you bear with me as well? So straight up, let's start with the emergency department. So this was your Kaizen event in paediatric nursing assessment, which sounds brilliant. Is it all of you? Mm-hmm. Will you do the honours of introducing yourselves? Because you can tell I'm struggling to get the words out. Would you mind doing that?
We will.
Brilliant, okay.
Should we turn around orders?
So hello, my name is Helen Raleigh. I'm a KPO specialist and I've been the team lead this week for the event, the Kaizen event for the emergency department, and we've been focusing on paediatric nursing assessment. So the paediatric emergency department sees on average about 120 patients a day, and the patients that arrive in that system, they go through a very quick vet process followed by the nursing assessment. And we know that from the observations that we've done that there can be significant delays in that process of assessment for various reasons. These might be interruptions to staff, lengthy conversations, looking for equipment and supplies. So this week we have focused on this process, and I will hand over to the team. So our targets that we focused on this week, our lead time, so the amount of time it takes to assess a patient, at the baseline was 24 minutes and 53 seconds. We've also focused upon interruptions and also 5S, so looking at the environment to which we ask our staff to work in. The tact time, so the pace of work in order to meet that demand, works out at just 12 minutes to be able to keep single piece flow. So starting out with our baseline of 24 minutes and 53, it was quite some challenge to be able to get down to below 12 minutes. Our value stream map, as you can see here, sets out what the current process was. So you can see at the very beginning there were 4 patients waiting for that process when I took those observations. You can see the red boxes are the boxes where actually that's non-patient contact. We've agreed those boxes don't really add value to the patient. There's only 2 steps really where there's that contact with the healthcare professionals in the department.
So, hello, my name's Helen Mollard. I'm the clinical lead for paediatric emergency medicine here at Leeds, and I'm the process owner of this. So the challenge set to us for the sponsor was to design a standardised assessment process in 5 steps. Prior to this, as you can see, the process involved about 11 steps and wasn't standardised across the board. So what we did initially was we decided in order to be able to address this, we had to first of all define what assessment was and what observations were, because they mean different things to different people. And to do this, we did some wordplay to come up with a standardised description. So we decided that assessment was identification and stratification of children, and the observations was a visual tool which included a standard set of parameters which allowed us to guide staff to how unwell a child is. So although it wasn't initially in our remit, we realised that VET is very closely linked with assessment, and we couldn't really look at one without the other. So VET, for those who don't know, is our visual tool we do when a child arrives. It has to be completed within 15 minutes, and it's a quick look, are they safe to wait a bit longer for a full nursing assessment. So current state is that the VET occurs in a corridor next to the waiting room at a computer, which led itself to not being confidential and to being open to a lot of interruptions from people. So the simple thing we realised was just move it into our initial cubicle, cubicle A as we call it, which will improve confidentiality and hopefully reduce some interruptions from patients and families. So we've done that, and that is still ongoing. We realised it worked really well, it improved confidentiality, but the interruptions are still there because there's actually no one else to field those questions. So we're going to continue to do it where we're doing it in Cubicle A, but maybe look at trying to think about other workforce we could put into play to help with the interruptions.
My name's Simon. I'm the lead paediatric advanced practitioner in children's emergency medicine. we recognised that we were duplicating a lot of work, so the nursing team were going in to do an assessment and often handwriting information on a piece of paper, then going to find a computer to type it up, which we thought was a slightly long-winded process. And also the cost of the actual booklets themselves, the monetary cost, and often we don't actually necessarily require those booklets all the time. So we decided to generate some ideas about what would assessment look like if it was done by McLaren or if it was done by Disney, which I particularly enjoyed. And there was lots of things that we talked about that weren't relevant about, you know, Disney and McLaren have a vast amount of money to spend. They can do lots of things, charge people, have fast track systems that we don't necessarily have. But some of the good things that we pulled out were about being a bit more, looking at how we could be more efficient, looking at being more cheery, greeting people in a better way, and thinking about actually when we have to apologise and say sorry to people. So the change that we put in was that the nurses wouldn't use paperwork to document. They would document things directly onto the computer system, and at the end of that assessment process, they would just print the front A&E sheet and some stickers, and if the clinician then required more space to write, they would then get a booklet, but it hopefully will reduce the amount of booklets that we're needing to use. And that hopefully will reduce not only monetary costs, but the cost of the time for the nursing team, and also hopefully improve productivity.
Hello, my name's Jess and I'm one of the sisters in Children's A&E. So following going paperless, we identified that the first problem is that we were unable to identify which patients were waiting for assessments or which patients were currently undergoing an assessment. Quite a simple resolution to this is we just utilised the named nurse column on Symphony, which improved patient safety, created an audit trail and improved the efficiency of the staff. The second problem is that quite often nurses were calling a patient through to complete the nurse assessment and had no allocated space. The room they may have been using might have already been used by somebody else. So again, a really simple resolution is that we now have a pre-allocated space for each nurse assessing for the day, again to improve efficiency, reduction of waste and improved also the working environment for every nurse.
Hello, my name's Sandy and I'm a nursery nurse and I've been a member of this event this week. My role was to 5S, the assessment rooms. Therefore, I went through all the 5 S's, starting with sort. So I sorted the necessary items only for these rooms. Then simplify. Items needed were located and put in the correct place. One of our rooms has a computer in it, but you can't actually type at the computer, so that will have to be moved. Sweep. Items that were missing, sourced, if used, then put back to avoid future interruptions. Standardise, checklists made available in detail for the people that will be stocking these rooms, so these lists will be for them. And self-discipline, checklists signed and an agreement from the team, if something is used, then to put it back in the correct place, and also to report broken or needed items.
Hello, my name is Alice. I'm a trainee advanced practitioner and I work in general paediatrics. So I've been a member of this team this week to share learning across the 2 areas. So we identified that the current process for taking observations and completing the nursing assessment involved lots of sort of moving in between rooms for the patient and the family, and wasn't maybe the most efficient way to do things. So the old process was that the healthcare assistant would call the patient into the room, take the observations, and then the patient would go back to the waiting area. The nurse would then call the patient again and complete the nursing assessment, and that would be the process complete. So our idea was to have a tag team made up of a nurse and a healthcare assistant to simultaneously take the observations and complete the assessment in the same room at the same time. We noticed a reduction in time to complete this process and less moving around for the patient and the families. And it also identified a learning opportunity and an opportunity for a junior and senior nurse to work together and complete this process and providing sort of support and mentorship to the junior staff.
So the results from the testing that we've done this week, obviously we've only been working on this since Wednesday morning, so opportunity to test this process has been quite limited. The team have been out on the Gamba since Wednesday afternoon, which is fantastic. And you can see the results, the lead time and in essence the setup reduction time are the same. They measured this yesterday and the median time was 5 minutes 51 to complete that nursing assessment process, which is significant in comparison to where they started from at 24 minutes 53. And so we've recognised that that process does require the resource to do that, however that the team continued testing that whilst we were not in the department. And so the feedback that they've had from that has been really well received. The other element in terms of interruptions, yesterday only 2 of the patients that were having their assessment were interrupted. So again, that's improved. And we've recognised that actually what we really need to do now is capture the themes of those interruptions to really start to reduce that even further over the next 30 days.
So this is our future state. As you can hopefully see, there's a lot less steps than in our current state. So there's only 5 steps and there's a lot less waste as well on there. And then moving forward, this is how we're going to carry on and the things we're going to continue to do. And then obviously we'll report back on this at designated times.
And so our key learning and challenges, the department's been busy this week. And so for those of you that are familiar with the department, it's not very big in terms of having the extra personnel in the department. But the team have been very encouraging of everyone going in there and have supported this testing. And so we thank them for that. I think one of the things that's really come through is how do we really set our staff up for success? We've heard about differences in our understanding of what words mean to everybody. So working towards that common definition I think will be really helpful, but also the education and training. And we've reflected that actually when you undertake a nurse assessment, whilst you are signed off as competent, you don't get ongoing feedback around how you continually improve that as a professional. I think for me personally, this is the first Kaizen event that I've done. And so I think that the next 2 are linked. How quickly something can be achieved. The team came back on day 1 with, they've been obs tested, times, we've had a good go at this, 6 hours into this event. And so actually when you look at the amount of work that they've achieved in just 2 days, it really is quite phenomenal. And actually how much they can go away and achieve with quite limited teaching. So I was really nervous. I've taught 3 of the concepts of advanced lean training: understanding value and waste, 5S, and setup reduction. And they've done all of that off the back of those 3. So I would really encourage, you don't need to go on a lengthy time-consuming course to be able to start improvements. Actually, you can do quite a short amount of training and deliver some really good results. And our thank yous, as ever, to the Children's Emergency Department. A shout out to Medical Physics and Telecoms. They've provided us with support this week about equipment. They were very responsive to those. Joe, as ever, for our catering, KPO, and our final team member that couldn't be with us today, Claire Anderson, who's a registrar in the department, and her input was valuable throughout the entire process. So thank you.
Hello everyone, apologies, I was slightly late, but I did see all of that, that was great. Just to, I know I'm breaking my own rules about questions at the end, Helen, sorry, but just to say, I thought phenomenal to have done all of this while we know probably the busiest we've ever been in paediatric ED, so fantastic, really good, well done. We'll pick up questions about your work at the end if you can stay for the rest of it. Great, okay, so next up we've got adult cardiac surgery value stream, pre-assessment, transitioning to operations. So if I can invite Jean, there you are, Jean. Do you want to come out? And are you, Gina, are you coming as well, or are you letting you? Lisa. And Lisa. Jean and Lisa. Fantastic. Welcome, Lisa. Welcome, Jean.
Okay, so hello, my name is Lisa McArdle and this is Jean Chapman, and we are the process owners for the RPIW for cardiac pre-assessment patients. There was a variation of how cardiac patients were pre-assessed, and our aim was for one best way. This is our 90-day report out. The target process report, this shows our lead time increased by 35% to 3 hours 14 minutes, but we have added value as the patients also sees the registrar and the anaesthetist at their pre-assessment visit. We also decreased the wait time, the waste, from 45 minutes to around 8 to 15 minutes. For all the cardiac patients are now being seen in this process. The quality defects regarding cancellations have been none. And in the October audit of the process, none of them, the patients were routinely sent for a chest x-ray. 100% of the patients were given the decolonisation. HbA1c tests were being done at the initial outpatient, and 100% of the blood results were available actually on the day for the doctor to review. And 100% of the patients were given a one-to-one verbal information by the specialist nurses. The newspaper shows that one best way was achieved for 100% of the patients in October, and we saw 20 patients. The staff, equipment, one standard form was resourced from pre-assessment, and all patients were followed up by the team. The agreement of all the cardiac surgeons and anaesthetists to use this process and documentation, we are still awaiting official agreement, but all the patients are actually going through this process. All standard work on HbA1cs and chest x-ray shelf life, again, is still to be officially agreed, but we are working within 3 months at the moment. The teaching and booklet, Your Journey Through Heart Surgery, has now been completed, and one standard letter will be achieved once confirmation of the new process is finally agreed. And I will now hand you over to Jean.
I'd like to talk about barriers and key learning. Barriers have been sharing equipment between areas, which hopefully has been resolved now. A new observation machine is now being used in pre-assessment, along with a blood trolley given by phlebotomy, and the ECG department have lent them a machine until a new one can be purchased. Till a new one can be purchased. The new rotas for anaesthetists will soon be in place. This means that all patients going through the new process will be seen by an anaesthetist in pre-assessment. A barrier continues to be staff having to take samples across to the labs so that they can be processed urgently. We're still waiting for feedback, official agreement that is, from the consultants involved, but have decided that until that happens, the new process is up and running and will continue as it is, with any problems that arise being dealt with at the time. We have given out feedback forms from the patients. All patients are said that they felt safe and hopeful. These are patients that have been through the whole process, by the way. All patients are said they felt safe and hopeful when referred to the LGI for cardiac surgery, apart from one who said they felt okay. Patients felt grateful and optimistic when given pre-assessment date. The patients rated the education session 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5 in preparing them for surgery. One patient did not see a consultant or registrar on the day, but the others that did said it made them feel confident. Patients said that as a whole, the process then made them feel pleased and valued. One patient did say that getting the date for pre-assessment made it seem real, but they felt all geared up after they had the pre-assessment and would have liked a date for surgery at the time. We have talked about this and said that it's not possible at the moment due to pressure on ICU and surgical beds. Staff feedback. Staff said they would be extremely likely to recommend the LGI as a place to have cardiac surgery, and likely or extremely likely as a place to work. They agreed that the organisation puts patients' care as top priority. They agreed that they are able to make improvements and suggestions and the team and the ward that they work on, and to show their initiative. Future plan. All patients will continue to be given the Journey Through Heart Surgery booklet in clinic at their first visit if listed. All bloods, including HbA1cs, which take longer to come back, will be taken on the day of the visit to clinic if requested by the surgeon, to highlight any problems as soon as possible. If possible, consultants to write a plan for the patient's surgery in the clinic letter. This can then be followed by the registrar or consultant who consents the patient in pre-assessment. Medical outpatients has now been refurbished. This includes all new chairs in the waiting area and consulting rooms. Walls have been washed and cleaned. New pictures will be going up. This will not only benefit pre-assessment patients and staff, but all the neurosurgical patients, cardiac rehab patients and staff, and other clinics who use this area 5 days a week. We'd like to say a very big thank you to all the following people for their hard work and support. So this is a bit like being at Oscars, so bear with me. To Take Heart for buying pre-assessment a new OBS machine, for refurbishing the area, and for eventually we will be getting a new ECG machine, which again they will be buying. To Judy Shackleton, Senior Sister, Cardiac Neuro Outpatients, Surgical Outpatients, ENT and Medical Outpatients, for organising the new furniture, for helping to set it up and get new pictures, and to the cleaner, who I'm sorry his name, I still don't know, who helped us sort the area out that morning. To ECG for the loan of their machine. To Andy Fitzpatrick, Cardiac Investigations, for sorting out where to get a new machine from, which took quite a while, and for trialling the machines. To Jill Whittle in Cardiac Rehabilitation, for updating your Journey Through Heart Surgery booklet, and for organising the patient and staff feedback forms. To Cardiac Rehab staff for giving them out and collecting them. To Gillian Coates, Secretary and PSC, and to all secretaries and clinic receptionists. To Karen Waterhouse, Senior Sister in Pre-Assessment, and the pre-assessment staff. To all staff, cardiac and neuro outpatients. To Natasha Bissett and Lauren Baggett for the help with the slides, because we don't do slides, do we? And we don't know what we're doing with them anyway. So thank you very much, and that's it. Thank you to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, that was great. Looks fantastic.
Yeah, it does look
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Take Heart, Gina. Yeah, they're helping support that. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I'm sure we'll have some questions for you at the end. Next up, though, we've got critical care and neurosciences with the Step Down to Neurosciences value stream, RPIW number 7. It's the 60-day report out, and so I think we've got Crystal, have we? And Holly. Excellent. Do come forward and tell us all about it. And Rob, right.
I broke this last time, so sorry. So hi, I'm Crystal, I'm the business manager for spinal surgery. So our RPIW was actually focusing on elective scheduling for theatres and surgery, and we are looking at smoothlining our own processes and also making sure our processes work well with pre-assessment, making sure that our colleagues can make sure that bed levels are right on the day. Right, I'm going to give this a go at making sure that we've got the right slide. We've only been 3 weeks since we were last here, so we've not been able to really do a lot, and Rob will cover why at the end of the slideshow. What we've tried to focus on is the work that we've been doing with our patients So we've had a look at some of the quality defects. We were having a massive issue with patients not answering our phone calls with our previous process, and 65% of the patients weren't answering the phone so that we could tell them whether or not they could come in for surgery. So we've introduced a fixed booking system where we send out a letter and then we ring the patients with 7 days to go, and they tell us if they're able to come in. So far in the period that we've looked at, only 1 out of 18 haven't answered the phone calls, which is brilliant. So that's down 92%. We've also looked at the date that the patient is offered and whether or not that's been acceptable. So previously we were ringing patients up with short notice and we're saying, can you come in next week? Funnily enough, they weren't able to come in next week. So we're now giving them at least 3 weeks notice, and we're finding that actually so far we've had 0% saying that they can't come in, and that's obviously because they've got a chance to look at the childcare, making sure they've got time off work. Now that doesn't include the Christmas week. I imagine that those patients that are currently receiving the letters for sort of Christmas Eve and things like that, we're going to see that figure go up somewhat. Going back to the patient phone calls, Holly's going to fill you in on this.
So our scheduling process, as Crystal said, now entails fixed booking of the patient 3 weeks in advance by sending them a letter that then advises them to call us if they're not available for the date. So 7 days prior to the admission, we'll call them and we'll just ask them if they've received the letter, if they understand it, and if they can attend. After fixed booking for 6 weeks now, we've found this to be mostly successful, as Crystal said, although we have come across one issue in finding the new patient after failure to contact the original patient. We're just kind of getting back into the same but because quite a lot of our patients take clopidogrel or tablets like that, which they need to stop up to 10 days before, so that just makes our pool of patients a lot smaller to go from. So we've now changed that date, and we now adjusted it to a 10-day phone call, which gives us a lot more patients to choose from at the end. We were also slightly worried about DNAs, but now we're implementing the fixed booking system. We've found that...
Shall I do a drum roll?
Okay, go on. 100% of our patients have attended on
We've got some items outstanding from our newspaper, and some of those respond to... We've got an issue with standardisation, so we're asking our consultants, when these guys are scheduling, they've all got very different ideas about how long a consent lasts, how long does a pre-assessment last. So Holly here struggles because she's got to look up, one consultant thinks it lasts 3 months, another consultant thinks it lasts 4 months. So we've asked them to go away and just have a think about actually how long should a consent last for, how long should a pre-assessment last for. And the answer that we've got from them is they disagree. We've got the same issue with the loan kit. So we loan a lot of kit. So we were going to say, right, fine, if we're going to loan this kit, let's just buy it. Let's do some work around that. Guess what? They don't really want to agree on which loan kit they want. So standardisation is very difficult because within spinal surgery, we've got neurosurgeons, we've got orthopaedic surgeons, and they all work in very different ways. So that's going to be difficult to try and get somewhere with. The schedulers also get information from lots of different areas. We've got lots of IT systems, you've got your notes, you've got your packs, and trying to put that all into one place, that's been really, really difficult. Sometimes the information isn't even updated for us to update. We're trying to get it all together on the booking tool, but that is taking a long time to sort of try and collate. And we don't have a lot of time at the moment, do we, to be gathering bits and pieces. Which leads us into our barriers and key learnings.
Yeah, so my name's Rob, I'm the General Manager for Neurosciences and also sponsor for this RPIW. So in short, there's an intense level of scrutiny on spines at the moment, and that's being compounded a little bit by the recent winter pressure. So we're bringing in the Silver Command regularly, which has put a dampness, so sometimes we want to go with patients in theatre and we're not able to, or sometimes we have to move things around because of the bed situation. Recruitment induction, a lot of the items in the newspaper actually rely on people being in post, and we've been recruiting to those posts, but obviously these take time, it's a process and it takes time. So we've just started to receive the first cohort of those people we needed to recruit, but we've still got some more posts to fill and some more people to bring in, so that's just delaying things a little bit. Obviously we've got Christmas coming up, and as Crystal said, I can't imagine that many people want back surgery on Christmas Eve. Acute spinal surgery shares their acute theatre with the neurosurgical acute theatre. what this means is that a cranial acute 90% of the time will trump someone with a bad back. There's no two ways about it. So if the acute demand for spines increases and it also increases for cranial surgery, we suddenly end up in this awful situation of having to take down electives at the last minute. Often these electives are people who've waited 40, 50 weeks for surgery already, so it's a constant juggling act of trying to keep the flow going, but at the same time making sure the acutes are taken care of. Myself and Rob Armstrong piloted a First Starts project in theatres, and that's been going now for 3 weeks and it's been successful. So a lot of the time the patients were delayed getting into theatre, so what we've done is we've started to say that actually the patient will be in an allocated bay, they will go into PACU, they'll be there waiting for the surgeon and the anaesthetist ready for team brief to start, and we're seeing a 30% reduction in late starts in that 3-week period, so that's something that's really positive. And IT issues with TMS.
Probably didn't tell you about that actually.
Well, it's login, it's access, isn't it, to the right information?
Yeah, so part of the project was working alongside a lady named Sophie came to our RIPW week, and she was often ringing us saying we haven't got all the information we need for the bed level. So I'd rung her up to sort of give me a bit of a report back on whether that's got better. And unfortunately, due to IT issues, she doesn't get any information at all. So that's not got better, but that's not our fault. So we need to look at that before we can actually tell you how that's going.
Yeah. And the last thing, which isn't on here, I just want to say from my point of view, a big thank you to Chris and the team, is, as I said, we're under intense scrutiny because of our long waiting list, and I think to come here today to show the results that you've had and to present in the way you've done is to your credit, and you certainly make my life as a GM a little bit easier. So it's just a big thank you from me as well. Yeah.
Great. Well done, guys. That's great. That's great. So again, loads in there, and I'm sure we'll have some appreciative inquiry of the work that's going on in that RPIW. So now we come to one of our mini graduation ceremonies, which is great. So we've got Lean for Leaders certification to Samantha Sinclair. So Samantha, do you want to come forward and receive your certificate? Just to say, as ever, we're always very proud of our colleagues who achieve Lean for Leaders. It is, it's an important sort of marker of progress, and I'm sure you've learned a lot, presumably, through it.
Yeah,
and
it's been a bit stressful.
Yeah. And you've been able to apply what you've learned on the Gemba.
Yeah, it's helped to deliver an RP. No? WRP.
Yes. Waste reduction, fantastic.
Nearly £500,000.
Wow.
It's been quite an achievement.
That's brilliant. Terrific. Well, really well done.
Thank you.
Is there anything you wanted to say?
No.
Fantastic. And I should say, what I neglected to do earlier on was award the team from Children's ED their certificates of participation in the Kaizen event. So very well done. So Jess, there you are. Helen, well done. Ellis, congratulations. Sandy and Simon, very well done. Thank you. So now we are up to Q&A. So we've had a lot today, which is great. So plenty to get your teeth into in terms of questions, comments. So who'd like to kick off? John. Okay,
so the project team had a lot of thank yous at the end. And I just wondered, how did you manage to get these people involved? What was the key thing? How did you manage to do that?
We were all together to start with, and so everybody had the jobs to do, and it's carried on through the whole process. And they've all been very helpful and contributed towards it, so they all need it.
Were there any problems at all engaging anyone? And if so, how would you get around that?
There was just one problem with engaging a consultant, but I think all the problems have been resolved now.
Thank you. Very good, very good. Gina, did you want to come in on?
Yeah, just you know, the challenge of actually across 4 different CSUs and that those teams coming together, and I think that regular communication and real commitment from the teams actually that they wanted this to work. I mean, thanks to Jean and Lisa, you know, they really drove the changes through. It was nurse-led, these changes. And I think one of the important things as well was actually it wasn't just for cardiac surgery, they've rolled these changes out across other specialties as well, so those improvements they've made across for all patients attending pre-assessment now, so I think that's tantamount to their sort of commitment there.
I think the main positive thing, obviously, it's a better process for the patients, but I think the communication between the different specialities, we've now got links with different people in different areas, you know, and it's been, because I think you do when you're working in one area, you get a little bit tunnel vision, but now we've got lots of good communication with different people, and you know, and I think that is key. I think communicating across the trust with different specialities has been very good.
I agree with that, because you are in your own little space, as it were, and you don't always see other people's areas, their problems, etc. So yeah, I agree. It's been really good. Yeah. Oh, we're all friends now. We're all friends.
Great.
Steve? Just for the children's ED team, we know that the current pressures are quite considerable in the children's ED, and yet the Kaizen event went ahead and was so successful. Just flipping on the other side, do you think that because out of the blocks you were so successful in reducing the lead time so quickly, did that have a really manifest effect on the running of the children's ED? You know, is it already you can feel the benefits of what you've achieved this week?
So I think part of it was that when we went down, we were very clear that we wanted to test the ideas, and actually the staffing that was on site probably wouldn't have facilitated that as well. So we possibly created some artificial, because we took a nurse, we took someone to work as an assessment nurse and managed to get someone to budget them up. So we almost created the running of it. If we had that level of staffing to be able to run 2 assessment rooms with 2 qualified nurses and 2 CSWs in it every day, would, on top of the other demands of the department, would be wonderful. It may be that there will need to be some modifications until we reach that staffing level, and hopefully some of the ideas, like the paperless and some of those other things, will improve things. But we all recognise that there is still a lack of resource there that we won't be able to manage until, and we do have some longer term planning around staffing that's coming in, but until that happens, it may slow down our improvement.
It's good that we've shown what we can achieve with adequate resource, and that's what we need to do. And we've shown little things that will certainly reduce times and wait times.
Yes.
So there's a lot we can do immediately, and then long term there's definitely things with the adequate resource we need. We could really have a much more streamlined process.
And the piece about moving from the sort of duplication of paper and computer to...
Well, we can do that now, and that will make a huge difference. And what we did is I went and observed in the adult ED, and all the adult ED are writing and typing, so they're all doing exactly that.
Right.
So if they all started just doing what we're doing, then that would reduce them, because I watched RAU assessment, I watched ambulance assessment, and they all are writing and then typing. Some of their assessments were taken up to an hour, I observed in adults, which made me feel quite proud about PTE. So certainly there's learning across the board that can be taken out of that.
Sorting all the equipment out and having them, the 3 rooms identical with the equipment that you would need to use for the assessment, and that alone just sped the process up as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions? Comments?
Another one.
Another one? Yeah, go for it.
The paediatric team, the cardiac team had some feedback from their patients. I just wondered if I may have missed it, but you've got some feedback from the carers or the children that come through. and also whether you involved any of the parents with any of your pathways at any stage. Again, you may have mentioned that and I may have missed it. I'm just interested to know.
We did speak to families. It's difficult because not many of them have been through the process before to compare to this process, obviously, because we don't lend ourselves. But unsurprisingly, there were families who've been there before and were back. So we did get some positive feedback about they thought it was more streamlined and quicker, but I think it's difficult that they didn't have that comparative of what things were like before, but it was quite positive. It's a difficult time to take family feedback in the PTD at the minute, and we recognise that. So there was certainly nothing more negative than we're currently experiencing.
I think Paul and Jenny.
So mine's more of a request. So I'm Paul Jones, I'm new Chief Digital and Information Officer. You finished your presentation with, and the IT issues continue, or something like that. So could you grab me at the end and we can have a chat about that, please?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks Paul. Jenny?
So we were being dead digital.
Yeah.
And Yvette was FaceTiming in. So she's had to go now because she's gone to the meeting that she's out of the trust to do. But if I just read her text to you. All fantastic. I'm really impressed by all. Please pass on my thanks to the team. And then she goes on to say, and by the way, I'm around tomorrow because you're on call if things go off track.
Yeah. It was, I'll have to say, as Steve was holding the phone up to facilitate that, seeing what was going on, I did think that's probably the first time I've seen Dr. Ode in the palm of your hand. And the last So thank you very much. That's been a great report out, and really well done to everyone participating in the work on the Leeds Improvement Method. I always say this, but if you can kind of convey the importance of report out and also of the work that you're doing, involve your team. It's obviously our management method, it's how we work, and we're making really great strides. Even more important to do this when we're under such pressure as we are at the moment, because we get really tested and are being tested, but keeping the faith with the way we do it, with the Leeds way and the Leeds Improvement Method, will help us work through some of those challenges more effectively. So thanks very much everyone, that's great, see you next time, cheers.
Is it okay?